My wife's yoga friend was in on it, and now they want me to star in their bizarre garage film with a dolphin and Jell-O.
Hi, I'm Alex, 31, and last Thursday, I found out my wife has been lying to me for 6 months about something so ridiculous, so stupid, that it would almost be funny if it hadn't wrecked everything. It started with a grocery receipt. Yeah, a grocery receipt. She left it on the counter, folded in half like it was nothing, but I picked it up because it was weirdly long, like Costco long. Only we don't shop at Costco. I started skimming the items, normal stuff at first, milk, eggs, cereal. Then 14 packs of Mentos, 3 tubs of Vaseline, 10 cucumbers? I know, it sounds like the setup to a dirty joke, but it wasn't funny. Not when you're standing in your kitchen realizing your wife might be prepping for either a TikTok prank or a very specific type of OnlyFans. I didn't say anything right away, just tucked the receipt in my hoodie pocket and went about my day like my whole internal system was screaming. That night, I watched her brush her teeth like nothing was off. She kissed me goodnight, rolled over, and fell asleep within 5 minutes like she always does. I couldn't sleep. My brain just kept turning it over like a Rubik's Cube I couldn't solve. And then, against every good instinct I've ever had, I snooped. I'm not proud of it, but that's how I found the second phone, hidden in the back of her underwear drawer inside an old sunglass case. It wasn't even clever. It was just lazy, like she didn't think she had to try. The phone was on, no passcode, battery at 43%. I opened the photos, and that's when I saw it. The first picture was her, my wife, wearing a horse mask in our garage, holding a rake. The next few were similar: costumes, wigs, props, always the same setting, always just her, and always doing something with an inflatable dolphin, sometimes wearing it like a backpack, sometimes talking to it, sometimes holding it like a baby while eating cereal. I know what you're thinking. What the hell am I reading? Believe me, I was thinking the same thing. The kicker, in the corner of most of the photos, barely visible, like an accidental reflection, was my leaf blower. My leaf blower, which had gone missing in June. The last photo made me sit down on the edge of the bed because I honestly thought I might pass out. It was her, in a full clown costume, covered in what looked like green Jell-O, standing in front of a whiteboard with the phrase, "Alex must never know," written in big red letters. Alex, that's me, and apparently I wasn't supposed to know. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every time I closed my eyes, all I saw was the horse mask and the inflatable dolphin, and my damn leaf blower, like some unholy mascot of betrayal. I lay there next to her, my wife of 5 years, listening to her breathe like everything was normal, while my brain short-circuited trying to figure out what kind of secret life she was living. Was it performance art? A kink thing? Was she selling this? Was it for someone specific? By 6 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I went for a run, except I didn't run. I walked around our neighborhood in pajama pants and a hoodie, trying not to look like a man on the brink. Every neighbor who waved at me became a suspect. Did they know? Were they in on it? By the time I got back, she was up, in the kitchen, making coffee like nothing was weird. She smiled and said, "You're up early." I said, "Yeah, couldn't sleep." She asked if I wanted eggs. I said no. And then, I swear to God, she reached into the fridge, pulled out a tub of Jell-O, and said, "I think I'm going to bring this to Megan's later." Megan is her yoga friend. Megan has a Pinterest board called Snackspiration. Megan is incapable of lying because she once cried over returning the wrong charger to Best Buy. So I knew she wasn't going to Megan's. I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone down on the counter like a bad soap opera. I just slid it across the table, screen unlocked, photo gallery open. She stared at it for a second, then looked at me, and in the calmest, most chilling voice I've ever heard, she said, "So I guess this means I can't finish the trilogy?" I blinked. "The what?" "The trilogy," she said, like I was the idiot. "I was 2 videos in, the Dolphin saga. You ruined the arc." I stared at her. She stared back, and then she started explaining how it was a parody channel, how it started as a joke between her and Megan during lockdown, how they filmed these bizarre silent shorts in garages and basements, edited them on their phones, and uploaded them to a private Vimeo channel under fake names, how they called her Blorbo and the Dolphin Justice, and the horse mask symbolized capitalism. I didn't say a word. I just nodded, slowly, like a man who just learned his wife had an underground clown-themed cinematic universe and a fan wiki. And then she said the one thing that broke my brain clean in two. We were gonna submit the final one to Sundance. That was the moment I realized I wasn't married to a person. I was married to a franchise. She stood there, arms crossed, like I'd ruined her dream. Like I was the unreasonable one for being blindsided by a secret alt identity where she poured green Jell-O on herself while staging whisper rituals around a leaf blower. Sundance? I repeated, because my brain was still buffering. She nodded. Not officially, but there's a side submission forum. Indie Absurdist Shorts. We had traction. We, I said flatly. You and Megan? She looked insulted. Yes, me and Megan. Do you think I'd roll around in Vaseline and film it alone? I didn't even know how to respond to that. I just sat down at the kitchen island, like maybe the granite would ground me. And that's when she started pitching it to me. Not explaining, pitching. We had a full arc planned. The first short was Justice's Arrival, Silicone Shores. Second was the corruption arc, Alex Ascends. And the third was the redemption finale, the reckoning, the blender scene. I held up a hand. Nope, don't explain the blender scene. She kept going. And it was going to be beautiful. Art house surrealism. Think Lynch meets TikTok. Symbolism, layers. The rake represented bureaucracy. Your leaf blower, power through artificial means. I stared at her. You made my leaf blower a theme? She nodded, genuinely proud. And here's the part I haven't told anyone. A tiny, horrible part of me respected it. Not the secrecy, not the deception, but the commitment, the absolute bonkers level of detail. She had world-building notes, a plot bible, concept art, a soundtrack playlist. She even built a foam replica of the dolphin's egg for continuity. She used the blender to melt candy necklaces to simulate time decay. It was insane, but it was also, God help me, impressive. So what now? I finally asked. What do you want me to do with this? She paused, thinking. Then, I think you should be in the third one. I laughed. She didn't. You want me, Alex, to act in Alex Ascends: The Reckoning? She smiled. You already are. You're perfect. Just angry and confused enough. Raw, unfiltered. We'll film it docu-style, make it meta. You confronting the absurdity, breaking the cycle. I stared at her like she'd grown a second head, and maybe she had. But then she said one last thing before walking out to go test the fog machine. Or you can just divorce me and let the fans write their own ending. I didn't leave. I should have. Any sane person would have grabbed their keys, walked out, and never looked back. But instead, I opened my laptop and searched Silicone Shores short film Vimeo. Found it in 5 seconds. The video had 42,000 views. It opened with a wide shot of our garage, covered in pink cellophane. My wife, Blorbo,
entered the frame in slow motion, riding a skateboard wearing a gas mask and a t-shirt that said, "Alex Lies." The inflatable dolphin floated behind her, tethered by a string of Christmas lights. For 3 minutes, she danced with a bucket of marbles. Then she stared directly into the camera and whispered, "Moss knows." I watched the whole thing. And then I watched Alex Ascends. Yes, she named the second one after me. It was weirdly beautiful. Still insane, don't get me wrong, but also haunting in this deeply specific postmodern way. She moved like a mime on ketamine. The lighting was gorgeous. The sound design was legit. There was a part where she slowly duct-taped a single Twizzler to a lawn chair while a distorted lullaby played in the background, and I swear to God, I felt something. And there, in the center of it all, was my leaf blower on a pedestal, spinning slowly like an offering. I closed my laptop and just sat there. That's when she came back inside. She was holding a notebook. "You watched them." I didn't answer. "We've got the church gym Saturday at 2 p.m. for filming. Megan's bringing the jelly pool. We'll need a dry shirt for you and one scene where you crawl through streamers." "I'm not doing this," I said. She nodded, like she expected it. Then she said, "You don't have to, but you should know they love you." I blinked. "Who?" She flipped open the notebook. "The fans. They think Alex is the most tragic figure in the trilogy, the man outside the frame, the one who never knew he was the center of it all." "Is this a cult?" I asked genuinely. "No," she said, far too quickly. She slid the notebook to me. It was filled with comments, fan art, even a hand-drawn comic strip where Alex defeats the bureaucratic rake with the power of truth. One illustration had me, Alex, riding the dolphin like a steed, leaf blower held aloft like Excalibur. "They need closure," she whispered. "You can give it to them." And the worst part?
A tiny voice in my head whispered, "Maybe so can you." Saturday came fast. I told myself I wasn't going. Swore up and down I'd let her flail around in her absurdist yogurt opera without me. But 1:15 rolled around and I was in the car. Not even sure how it happened. Like my body had been hijacked by curiosity and a really stupid sense of obligation. The church gym was exactly what you'd expect. Linoleum floors, folding chairs, that weird musty smell of ancient basketballs and suppressed guilt. But the second I walked in, I knew I wasn't in Kansas anymore. They'd transformed it. Streamer curtains in every doorway, plastic flamingos in strategic corners, a trampoline covered in glitter, and in the center of the gym, the jelly pool. Inflatable, shallow, full of green goo that looked disturbingly similar to the stuff in Ghostbusters 2. Megan was there, in full costume, like a Victorian beekeeper who'd lost a fight with a Hobby Lobby. She waved at me with a rake wrapped in ribbon. My wife, Blorbo, saw me and lit up. "You came." "I'm still not doing the blender scene," I warned. She laughed. "That's fine. We'll use archival footage." Someone handed me a script, a literal script. Title, Alex Ascends, The Reckoning. Subtitle, A Visually Mediated Catharsis for the Leaf-Blown Soul. There were stage directions. One page just said, "Alex weeps silently while the dolphin spins." "Why does the dolphin spin?" I asked. "Symbolism," she said, as if that explained anything. We started filming, and against all odds, it kind of worked. There was a scene where I stood alone in a spotlight while Megan solemnly poured marbles around my feet. A moment where I picked up the leaf blower, yes, my leaf blower, and whispered, "I remember now." And then, the final sequence. Me dragging the inflatable dolphin across the gym floor toward the jelly pool while a boombox played slowed-down whale sounds. It was nonsense. It was cathartic. It was weirdly moving. After the final shot, everyone clapped. Not ironically, genuinely. Megan hugged me. "You were amazing." My wife, still in a wig shaped like a traffic cone, put her hand on my shoulder. "You've completed the arc." I didn't know what to say. I just stood there, covered in glitter and something that might have been tapioca, feeling lighter. Later that night, after a long shower and 2 ibuprofen, I sat on the couch beside her. "So now what?" I asked. She grinned.
Now we edit. And for once, I didn't feel like the punchline. The edit took a week. I didn't mean to be involved. At first, I just hovered, sat behind her while she clicked and trimmed, muttering about frame energy and vibe cohesion. But somewhere around day 3, I found myself pointing things out. Wait, what if you cut to black before the leaf blower sighs? She stopped, looked at me, then nodded slowly like I'd just quoted Bergman. My day 5, we were editing side by side. My day 6, I was in deep. We stayed up until 2 a.m. debating the color grading on a shot where I stood knee-deep in confetti while Megan in a snail costume hurled fortune cookies at my chest. You know, normal marriage stuff. And it was fun. Not just the editing, all of it. Laughing with her again, creating something together, even if that something was completely unhinged. It felt like we were on the same team for the first time in forever. I hadn't realized how long it had been since I'd looked at her and recognized the person I married, behind all the absurdity, beneath the wigs and the wigs on wigs. We finished the cut on a Wednesday night. She clicked render final and leaned back with this exhausted, satisfied smile, like a woman who'd just given birth to a glitter-covered masterpiece. You know, she said, this all started as a joke. Most cults do, I replied. She smirked, but it became something. I don't know what exactly, but people cared. They saw something in it. Insanity? She elbowed me. Honesty. And damn it, she was right. There was honesty in it. Stripped of logic, boiled in jelly, dressed in foam armor, there was something real underneath it all. Her frustration, her weirdness, her fight to be seen, and maybe mine too. The next morning, she uploaded the final chapter, Alex Ascends, The Reckoning. Within hours, the comments flooded in. This is the most emotionally confusing thing I've ever loved. Alex is all of us. I cried when he let go of the leaf blower. Someone wrote a full review on Letterboxd, called it an allegory for modern masculinity trapped in domestic entropy. It went viral again. Not like Super Bowl viral, but niche weird internet viral. The kind that gets written up on indie film blogs and shared by surreal meme accounts with usernames like @KafkaBaby422. By the weekend, we were invited to speak on a panel. Topic: post-ironic domestic performance in the digital age. I said yes, not because I cared about the panel, but because for the first time in a long time, I felt like part of her story. Not the villain, not the footnote, just part of it. The panel was in Brooklyn, in some renovated warehouse that smelled like espresso, ambition, and unwashed flannel. Everyone there looked like they ran a zine and refused to use deodorant on principle. Our name tags read Blorbo and Alex, yes, that Alex, which, to be honest, kind of ruled.
The moderator was a guy named Felix who wore suspenders unironically and used the phrase narrative viscosity twice before we even sat down. The audience was about 70 people deep, all nodding intensely like they were preparing dissertations on Dolphin symbolism and consumer trauma. So, Felix began, leaning into the mic like he was about to announce a séance. Blorbo and Alex, first of all, thank you. Thank you. Polite applause. Your trilogy has redefined the boundaries of absurdist emotional realism in the domestic cinematic space. My question is this: when did you realize it wasn't just a joke anymore? My wife looked at me, then back at Felix. Honestly, when he found the phone. Murmurs, some laughter, a few audible mm-hms from a girl in the front row with glitter on her eyelids and a tiny inflatable lobster as a purse. He was supposed to never see it, she continued, but then he did, and instead of freaking out, which, to be fair, he absolutely did at first, he leaned in, and that changed everything. Felix nodded sagely. So discovery became authorship. I don't know what that meant, still don't, but I leaned into the mic and said, for me, the shift happened somewhere between the jelly pool and the fortune cookie scene. More laughter. But seriously, I added, there's something weirdly healing about acting out your chaos instead of just stuffing it down. Turns out, screaming into a fog machine while holding a leaf blower is cheaper than therapy. We got a standing ovation. After the panel, people swarmed us, asking for photos, pitching collabs. One girl with a tattoo of the dolphin, I'm not joking, told me her boyfriend cried during the streamers scene because Alex's confusion mirrored his own. I didn't know how to process that, but I shook his hand and said, "Same, man." That night, back at the hotel, I lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling. "I think we made a thing," I said. She smiled in the dark. "A weird, beautiful, deeply confusing thing. Still think I should have had more lines. You whispered the truth into a bowl of pudding. What more do you want?" And yeah, it was ridiculous, but it was ours. Not long after, a small indie distributor reached out. They wanted to feature the trilogy in a surrealist film showcase. We signed the papers. Suddenly, our weird garage project had a premiere date at a real, actual theater, with popcorn and people who paid to be confused. And that's when something shifted again. Because on the night of the screening, as we stood in the lobby shaking hands with strangers who quoted our lines back to us like scripture, I saw my father walk in, wearing a blazer, with my mother. They looked uncomfortable, like they'd accidentally walked into a nudist brunch. But they were there, and when the lights dimmed and the jelly pool filled the screen, they stayed. They watched the whole damn thing. After the credits rolled, after the applause and the Q&A, and the guy in the beret who asked if the dolphin represented our collective yearning for structural collapse, I found them standing near the exit. My dad cleared his throat. "That was strange," he said. I nodded. "Yeah, but good," he added, almost defensively. "Weird, but it had heart." My mom looked at my wife and said, "You really made something." And then my dad clapped me on the shoulder. "I don't get it, but I think I'm proud anyway." And somehow that was enough. The trilogy was eventually picked up by a niche streaming platform, the kind that curates existential comedy and has a staff of 7. They gave it a proper release, polished thumbnails, a press write-up, and even a category tag that read, "Emotionally Absurd, Domestic Surrealism, Postmodern Marriage Therapy." We watched the view count climb past 100,000, then 250,000, then 500,000. And through it all, I kept waiting for the world to go back to normal, for her to hang up the horse mask, for me to stop being Alex. But it didn't, and weirdly, I didn't want it to. Somewhere along the way, the character stopped being just a joke. He became a version of me I didn't know I needed, a mirror, a vessel, a way to say things I couldn't say over coffee or in therapy or even during an argument at 2 a.m. Alex was confused, sure, but he was also brave in his own bewildered way. He showed up, he crawled through pudding, he screamed into a fog machine, and he ascended. I did too, in my own way. A few months after the premiere, a small art magazine reached out. The journalist, some sharp, hyper-articulate guy named Drew, asked me what it was like to become an internet symbol without meaning to. I laughed and said, "Accidental symbolism is my favorite genre." Then he asked what the trilogy meant to me personally. I thought about it. Then I said, "It's about finding your voice in the weirdest way possible, about realizing the people closest to you might not fully see you until you dress up in sequins and scream into a colander, and even then they still might, but at least now I see myself." He liked that quote. It made the headline. Now and then we still get tagged in reaction videos, fan edits, interpretive dances. One guy sent a tattoo pic of the quote from the final frame, "Not all weight is dead, some of it carries." I framed that screenshot, hung it in my new office, because I kept creating after the trilogy, not as Alex, just as me. Weird little animated shorts, voiceover collabs, a pilot pitch for a dark comedy about a man who inherits a haunted waffle iron. And people watched, people stayed. Even my dad, he started texting me links to articles about independent film. Still didn't get it, but he tried. That was enough. My wife and I, we're still weird, but now we're weird together, out loud, on purpose. Sometimes, in the garage, we re-watch the trilogy. She'll point out a lighting mistake. I'll complain about the pudding scene. We always laugh. And somewhere around the last shot, me holding the dolphin, staring into the fog, I always feel it again. The quiet truth.
that sometimes the thing that breaks you apart is the same thing that lets you build something new, from scratch, from glitter, from jelly, from love.